Hi everyone. So after I made the last two videos, the one on the snowbirds and then the one on the LA fire, it really clarified for me what these are all about, and it's all about the raising of the Christos oil. And what was really obvious was when they said that the fire in LA was at a honey oil plant or building. And I looked up the building on Google Earth, and it looks like it's been vacant for some time, so it's all staged. But basically, what honey oil is like CBD oil, which is also known as the Christos oil. It says like the pineal gland, Joseph secretes the milk, the pituitary, Mary secretes the honey, both from the same source, the colostrum Santa Claus. So it's the honey oil that they are referring to. And so it's like the land of milk and honey is the pituitary and the pineal gland together secreting these oils. So anyway, this image talks about the sacred oil returns after, let me read it in order. The two sacred oils travel down into the solar plexus via the semi-lunar ganglion pneumogastric nerve. And the psychophysical germ, the fruit of the tree of life, is born in the solar plexus or the manger. The Ida, which is red, and the Pingala, which is blue, two nerve fluids. This person's got a couple of typos in their graphic, but the two nerve fluids where the crossing of the medulla oblongata, the crucifixion takes place, where it rests for 2.5 days, and that's why it rises after 3 days. And then the fifth stage, the sacred oil returns after the crossing, the crucifixion. It enters the cerebellum or Golgotha, the place of the skull. The fluid Christ is refined 1,000-fold. So these rituals that have been performed in LA and Kamloops have to do with the raising of the Christos oil, so it says the Ida, which is red, and so the snowbirds video had a lot of red in it, and it featured this the tail end of the plane, which the witness testified saying that the tail end hit the PP or the power pole, which is indicative of the spine, the PP being the lower chakra or the root chakra, which is the Ida or the red, where the crossing of the two nerve fluids rise up the spine or the pole, and the power pole being representative of the spine, and the references being made to the back, and the crash and burn being references to if you do not do the work, then when you raise the fluid and it reaches the skull, it ends up being ashes, and so it kind of crashes and burns, and then it leaves ashes instead of lighting the brain, which it's supposed to do. When you raise the Christos oil, it's supposed to fill your brain or your mind with light, fill you with light, but it's supposed to in a way crystallize, and this is the reference to the Emerald City or the City of Glass. It's supposed to crystallize a part of your brain. I am not 100% sure. I'm still researching this part, but that's what the emerald is referring to. So when this happens, you become the shining one, And so all these references to green and emerald city, it's referring to the shining one. So that's the illuminated one. And that's why, all these references to the Anunnaki, they're called the shining ones. Those are the ones who are illuminated, the ones I guess you would call the Illuminati, but these Illuminati that we call Illuminati are not Illuminati. They're not illuminated. They're, harbingers of the true information, and they've perverted it and muddied the waters. But anyway, that's what I'm working on at the moment, and there's so much information that I've come across that I feel like I'm missing a piece, but I still want to present this information to you because I feel it's incredibly important. So at some point I'm going to have to, compile all the information I have, but it's quite a bit of information, and it's all very similar, coded, but basically this ritual, this coronavirus ritual, it is not literal. Just like everything else, it is not literal. The whole coronavirus thing is all about awakening. It's all about 2020 vision, opening the third eye. And what I really think this is about is raising the Christos oil and opening the third eye and merging the two hemispheres of the brain, because we have to this point shut off our connection to source, shut off our right hemisphere of the brain, which is access to the creative side or the beauty side or the other pillar, the pillar of the Kabbalah tree of life. So what I think is going on here is a mass awakening, and it's going to, this is what the explosion or the boom, or they keep talking about the boom and the explosion and the crash and the fireball. It's all indicative of a mass awakening, I think. And this is the second coming of Christ. It is an internal thing. It's not an external thing, but guaranteed they will externalize it. And, they use this information, they put it in plain sight, first of all, in code. Second, they mock us by, putting all these codes, mocking us about Jesus being a real being, because he's not. And sorry, anybody who's watching who thinks that he is. So anyway, this is all about the inner workings of you and what we must do in order to, ascend out of here, for lack of a better word. But so the idea of this germ or this virus, it is an allegory for this process. And, all of the key codes that they're using, they're just same old codes that they use for every story. Every single story that they tell you is heavily coded and telling the same story, because there is only one story here. This is it. This is the only story there is. You either do the work and ascend out of here, or you don't. So, there is no in between. And every single story points to that. The zodiac points to that. That's our journey here. That's our individual journey here. Everything boils down to this. Everything is the same. Every story is the same. Every single thing is the same. It's all fragments of the whole. That's all there is here. This is it. So, yeah. I mean, you can look at, okay, so with all of the work that I've been doing with decoding and exposing these frauds and I've been getting a lot of flack for it. A lot of people think that, that's just a distraction, but it's not all just a distraction. It's all coded for your benefit if you look at it that way. I mean, yes, on one hand they mock us, and they also withhold information from us, and they're doing shitty things to us as well, and I'm not on their side, but they're also simultaneously giving us this gift of truth if you have the eyes to see. They are evil in a lot of ways, but I think a lot of this evil is hiding the truth for people who are too afraid to look beyond the evil. And a lot of it is just smoke and mirrors. Again, they're masters of illusion, magicians. They know how the system works. They know how to mind control people. They know how to make us think things and forget completely that we thought something else. So, like the Darren Brown video, there was a comment that was incredibly insightful, that the Darren Brown video pointed out how well these people can manipulate us by showing that it is possible to completely mind control someone into believing that they wholeheartedly wanted a BMX bike, and they had written it down before they came in to the room, and completely forgot that they had written down something else before they came into the room. Now, granted, Darren Brown is he's put on by the elites, and he was using an actor, so, it is television. Who knows? Take it with a grain of salt. But this does happen. So if you look at 9/11, for example, 9/11 was hugely pre-programmed with multiple episodes of planes flying into the Twin Towers, literally, of the Twin Towers falling to the ground, of the Twin Towers burning, of there are huge indicators that this was coming. Now, so the huge indicators that this was coming, and also a lot of it is just generic coding, like 9/11 coding, because that's a big number for them. It represents Christ. The IXXI, it represents Christ, which is, basically Christ is you. It is the process within you to anoint you, to awaken you to the truth of who you really are. So they use this. So it's everywhere. And, they like to mock us and all this sort of thing. So 9/11, my point about 9/11 is they used a lot of programming to make people believe that there were planes on that day, but there were no planes. They planted people, they're crisis actors, they planted them around the area and interviewed them, and they all said, oh yeah, I saw a plane, I saw a plane, I saw a plane. And then yet, years later, we see footage of people saying, what plane? There was no plane. Now, I don't know whether that was deliberate or not, because they did, expose the truth for us. And granted, if that footage made it to mainstream anything, then it was deliberate. They don't make mistakes like that. So, yeah, they can completely program people into believing that they saw something that they did not see. And a lot of that has to do with peer pressure. So, okay, for example, this didn't work on me, but I was in a car accident once, and it wasn't a big car accident at all. And, there's multiple cars involved. There's about 5 or 6 cars involved. Anyway, we're on the highway going about 20. Everything just came to a standstill immediately. So we had to brake hard to stop. And the car, two cars in front of me stopped. The car in front of me stopped. and then I stopped like within an inch of the car in front of me, and the car behind me stopped within an inch of me. And then the car behind him hit that car, pushed it into me, but I didn't push into the car in front of me until the car behind them pushed into the two cars behind me and pushed me into the car in front of me. So I told this to the cop, and he said, no, it was the car at the end that hit you and pushed you into all the other cars. And I repeated what had happened to me, and I insisted that that was what it was. However, the cop pressured me into making a statement that was not accurate because he insisted that that was what happened. So it was obvious to me I wasn't going to be able to leave unless I agreed with him, so I just agreed. Well, there's no skin off my nose. I wasn't at fault. It gets the guy off the hook from behind me, pins it on the guy who was at the end. Anyway, so the poor guy at the end, he ends up getting charged, and he admitted to it and took the fall for it. But I don't think that was really fair. So it's just kind of an example of how people will change your mind for you. And if you take that as an example of the quote-unquote official story, they will say that each person testified to say that that's what happened, when in fact that wasn't what I said at all. And I still hold to this day that that's not what happened. Now, however, you ask somebody, so say for example, you talk to people about coronavirus, right? You know it's fake. You know that nobody knows anybody who has it, and nobody knows anybody who has it. And so you ask someone, say, well, is coronavirus real? And they'll say, of course it is. Well, how do you know? Well, people died. Okay, so do you know anybody who had it? Well, no. Okay, so then how do you know it's real? Well, because the TV told me. Yeah, but do you know anybody who had it? No. So then how do you know it's real? So if they're told that something happened, they're more inclined to believe it. And same with like war. So I asked this guy, he was in a war-torn country, and he left this war-torn country and came to Canada. And so I asked him, I said, it must have been pretty bad. What did you actually see? Did you actually see any combat or any, anything happen near you? And he said, oh yeah, I did. And I said, well, tell me. And this was after I knew about the truth. So, and I was at the point where it was like, war is fake. So anyway, so this guy, he said, well, I came across this bus that exploded. I saw this bus explode. I said, really? I said, did you actually see the bus explode, or did you see it after it had exploded? He said, well, I saw it after it had exploded. I said, oh, okay. So did you actually see any dead bodies? He said, no. Oh, so then how do you know that the bus exploded and that it killed anybody? And he's like, well, I guess I don't. No, you don't. Because you didn't see the bus explode, and yet he was convinced that he saw the bus explode. And so, if he says that he saw the bus explode, and then he tells somebody else that he saw the bus explode, and then all of a sudden all these people believe that the bus exploded when it actually didn't explode, whether they saw it or not. Same with, planes on 9/11. It doesn't matter whether they actually saw planes or not. It's this idea that they think that planes hit the building, and then they will tell people that planes hit the building and they saw the plane. And then you ask them under, tighter questioning, they'll actually admit that they did not see any planes hit the building. I guarantee you. I guarantee you it'll fall apart. So this sort of phenomenon happens, and we're susceptible to it because peer pressure, and most of the time we're not that certain I mean, I guess it's peer pressure. We're not that certain of what we see, or, we're kind of more lenient in terms of saying, well, maybe it didn't happen the way I saw it. Maybe I was wrong. Because all these other people say that they saw it. So how can I be the only one who didn't? And we're all standing in the same place. We're all witness to the same thing. That just doesn't make any sense. How is it possible? Well, they're all lying to you. That's a possibility, but you wouldn't even conceive of that. You just wouldn't conceive of it. So, yeah, a lot of this is smoke and mirrors, and a lot of this is just a big magic trick. And as I was saying before, I'm getting a bit of flack for focusing my attention on some of these things, and yet, as within, so without. It's a dualistic system here. Yes, it's important to do the inner work, but it's also equally important to understand the results you're getting from that work, but also what's going on outside of you and how you're being programmed without your awareness. If you don't understand how other people are controlling your mind, then how are you supposed to get control of your own mind? That's why it's so incredibly important, and I talk about the mind, and probably one of the very few people who talks about the mind on YouTube within this truth community, if you want to call it that. I mean, talking about the mind in reference, in direct reference, as it pertains to the truth, is incredibly important and it is incredibly rare. So this is why I talk about it. I talk about, magic and mind control and NLP and law of attraction and etymology, anagrams, words, spells, magic, syncretism. All of that's incredibly important. It's how the mind works. It's how the universe works. And so, yes, it's important to talk about this stuff. It's important to pay attention to what they're doing to an extent. Putting all of our attention on what they're doing at the expense of what we need to do for ourselves, that's not beneficial. It's not beneficial because you're not paying attention to yourself. You're not going within. You're not doing the inner work. So, yeah, you have to balance things. And I feel that if you're way too focused on the inner work, okay, so what is the inner work? A lot of people don't really talk about that, and I've wanted to talk about it a lot more, but the inner work, it has to do with confronting your fears. It has to do with confronting your triggers, your dark side, your darkness. I mean, it's the process. Here's the thing. So what a lot of people don't want to accept is that all of the information that these people, these controllers, are protecting, they're simultaneously putting it in front of our faces. And they're protecting it under the guise of it's evil. That is the information that you have to go toward. You have to go toward it. So if you are afraid of that, if you are thinking it's evil, if you think it's the devil's shit, the devil's work, then you're sorely mistaken. And maybe you're not ready for the information. Maybe that's why you think that way. And that's totally fine. You are where you are. But if you want truth, no matter what, if you want out of here, no matter what, if you want to ascend, no matter what, then this is the stuff you have to know, and this is what you have to do. You have to be bold, you have to be brave, and you have to face your darkness, you have to face your issues, you have to face your triggers, and you have to work through them. You have to accept you as you are in your entirety, darkness and light. That's how I see it anyway. And it's a painful process. It's a huge growing process. And I've been through the ringer in the last 3 years, experienced some of the most horrific things that I wouldn't wish on anybody. I know there's people out there who've experienced way more horrific things than me, and I'm not comparing my suffering to theirs by any means. But we each have our own individual path of suffering, each of us. And this world is designed around suffering, which is horrific. And what I can't fathom is who would design a world around suffering. There's suffering and then there's love. And this world lacks love like you would not believe. And people here don't even know what love really is. And I had talked about love before. I've talked about how the love that we're fed is synthetic, through movies and music and love songs, and it's all pain related. It's all, superficial pain related, synthetic love. We're programmed to understand how relationships are supposed to be and supposed to go, and in real life it doesn't work that way, because we're all deeply disturbed and messed up and troubled and confused and lost because of the way this world has been built, because of all the programming we've been fed, because of all of the indoctrination, the education, the bullshit we've been fed. Nobody knows what they're doing here. This is why we have to go within. We have to go within. You have to learn to trust your intuition. Your intuition is your best friend. Anytime I've gone against my intuition, it has turned out badly. And that was a good lesson for me. And I'm sure it's the same for you, because that's just how the world works. It's like your intuition is there for a reason. And the more you tune into your intuition, the stronger it gets. The more you hear it, the more you pay attention to it and act on it, the stronger you are, the more self-assured you are, the more love you have for yourself, the more self-respect you have. And there are a lot of times where we're pressured to conform to society, we're pressured to do things for other people that go against our intuition because of how it might look. And when you're presented with that situation, that choice, always choose you. You cannot lose if you choose you. And I'm not talking about choosing you at the expense of someone else, at the expense of causing someone else extreme suffering or, being hurtful or hateful to someone else. There are ways to go about it, but I'm talking about choosing you because you care more about yourself than you care about how you look to something, to someone, to a group of people. Because that is always the right choice. And, in my journey on YouTube, there have been a lot of things that I've had to deal with that any content creator can attest to, or any authentic content creator can attest to. This is a battleground. It is very difficult. It is very difficult. You get judged, you get trolls, you get attacked, you get agents, you get, some serious and sometimes dangerous interactions. I mean, you have no idea how dangerous it can be sometimes. And even though you're kind of like, okay, well, this is pretty bad, but you get through it. And sometimes you think, well, what am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? And I still ask that. I ask that every day, why am I doing this? And sometimes I feel like, would I be better off if I didn't do it? But I don't know. I mean, I think the one thing that I've noticed about CV, this whole event, is the significance and the importance of speaking. The importance of speaking out and speaking truth and connecting with other people, and the importance of authenticity, the importance of connecting with other people, and the importance of just speaking. I mean, there's nothing more painful than feeling so alone. There's nothing more painful than feeling that you have no one to talk to. I think the worst moment was when I discovered flat earth and realized that everything was tainted and everything was a lie, and that my whole life was a lie, and I had no idea who I could trust. And I felt so incredibly alone, and I couldn't tell people what I had just discovered. And it was agonizing. It was absolute agony. It just shattered me. I mean, there were times where I was going for walks because I needed to. Otherwise, I was going to scream or burst out or just burst into tears, and I couldn't even cry. It was so painful I couldn't cry. And I would walk down the street and I just wanted to sit on the sidewalk and burst into tears, and I just would like fold over in pain, in physical pain, because I couldn't feel what I needed to feel. I couldn't even identify what I was feeling. It was the most profound pain and suffering, well, which later I think I felt even more profound pain and suffering. But that idea that you have no one to talk to, that you're completely alone, that this is a solo journey. And even lately I've been feeling that this is such a solitary journey, that no matter how many people we talk to through, the internet, and thank goodness for that, it's still a solo journey. There's still, no matter what, you look at your life and you think back on your whole life and you think about how you experienced things in life by yourself and had no one to share it with. And even the person you shared it with, you could be sitting there, say you went to Italy and it was your dream vacation and you've always wanted to go to Italy, and you're sitting there in Venice or whatever. I fucking hate Venice, but whatever. So you're sitting there in Venice and it's, your favorite place in the world, and you're looking out over the canal and it's heaven to you. And you look across at your partner, and your partner's sitting on their phone texting or some crap, not even paying attention to it, not enjoying it at all, hates it, complains about it, and you feel completely alone. And you brought this person with you because you thought that they would enjoy it, and they're not even there. They're not present at all. They're not with you. They're just an empty shell. They're just a body. And so you really don't have anybody to share any of it with, anything in your whole life. Every single thing you have experienced by yourself, no matter who's with you, they're not really there with you. I mean, if you recount an experience with someone, it's kind of nice for a bit, but then, they leave. Or the experience is different for them. It's not the same for you. You have different perspectives. You had a good time, they had a bad time. They remember things that you don't remember. It's not really the same when you reminisce over it, And so even the things that you thought you shared with people, you really didn't share it with them. It's kind of messed up. And so lately I've been reflecting on that and realizing how really alone we are. even people who are married. People who are married, I don't see the unity there. I don't see the togetherness. I see some people, because they don't understand what love is. They don't understand how to have intimacy. They don't understand how to truly connect with people because they can't. Because the depth that you have to come in touch with, you have to come in touch with your darkness. You have to come in touch with your authenticity in order to have intimacy with anybody. And if you aren't able to do that, you're never going to have a real relationship, because you're only going to have this superficial connection. Because you can only go as deep with somebody else as you are willing to go with yourself. If you aren't willing to go deep with yourself and your partner isn't willing to go deep, you can only ever have a superficial relationship. Same goes for friendship. You talk to somebody about any of this stuff, and this is why we feel so starved for this information. We feel starved for this kind of connection and this kind of material. We have been craving it. Our whole lives, we've been fed superficial shit, materialistic shit. And we're just like, what the hell is this place? This is garbage. There's got to be more to it. There's got to be more to this place. There's got to be more to me. There's got to be more to relationships. What the hell? Why are we doing this? None of this makes any sense. And we've been craving it all our lives. And we're like starving beasts, ravenous beasts. And then all of a sudden we hit the truth and we're like, oh my God, this is like a cornucopia of delight, of heavenly wealth. And finally I get to eat. I finally get to feel satiated. And you just devour everything you can. And that's why we're addicted to the truth. And that's why when you meet somebody who knows the truth and you can talk to them, you feel full, you feel satisfied, you feel connected, because this is the shit we've been missing. And we've been living a lie all this time, but it's also this lie of hollowness and emptiness and materialism. And guaranteed, most of you have felt that you've been trying to connect with dead entities, NPCs, and they just don't want to. They're just vapid. They're not present. They don't do any inner work. They don't do any spiritual work, no reflection, no self-reflection, no introspection, nothing. Because they don't want to. They're afraid of what they'll find. Maybe something bad happened to them. Maybe nothing bad happened to them, but they still don't want to look there because they don't like who they are. They don't like who they are because of everything that the media tells them that they're supposed to be, and they don't measure up. And so instead of trying to fix the discord of, well, I don't have to be that way. I am me and I am wonderful. They feel bad because they don't measure up to what media and society tells them they're supposed to be, and therefore they just would rather not look. And instead they reject it all. They say that's all superficial garbage. In the meantime, they're still full of superficial garbage. They're just on the other side. So anyway, talking about superficial garbage, I'm going to talk a little bit about superficial garbage before I log off here. The sun is setting and it is beautiful. It is a beautiful pinky orange blue sky, and I think there were some chemtrails out today, but it was a gorgeous day. Beautiful. I went for a run and I ran to some very revealing truther music, and then I went to the grocery store and I wanted some change for laundry. I handed the lady 3 extra toonies, and I said, can you give me some loonies for these toonies? And in Canada we have like $2 coins that we call toonies, and loonies are $1 coins, and that's how serious we take our money. We call them loony toonies. And so I gave her my money, and she looked at like she couldn't count. And then she said, I can't do it. I'm not allowed. I was like, what do you mean you're not allowed? I've had people give me change before. Why are you not allowed? She's like, I just can't. Why? I can't. Why? I'm not allowed. Well, why? Why aren't you allowed? I just can't. And then she muttered something I couldn't hear. And I'm like, well, that's fucked up. And she got mad at me, and I'm like, okay, listen, you're the one who's made up arbitrary rules about not being able to break a $2 coin into loonies, and you can't come up with a reasonable answer as to why when you used to do it. So I think I'm the one who should be allowed to get mad at you, not the other way around. But anyway, yeah, that really bothered me. So I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to wish you a good evening, and I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.